today's topic is gonna be about the components. So my name is Baltazar. I used to work as a content creator for Meshmoon, and I will show you step by step how you can add some components like names, mesh, placable, rigid body, etc. to your space. So let's start. And first, what you need to do is to start your Meshmoon Rocket client. Once you've started it, you need to log in. You need to put your login and mail, just like in the website. Just write the name of your space. In our case, it will be webinar. And we're going to start at the state that we were last time in the first webinar. So first, let's connect. So while we are connecting, I advise you that this webinar is going to be recorded and that you should you should do what I'm going to show you today in the future and not doing at the same time. So now that we have opened our client, we can see what was done last webinar. We can find our rocket and a ground. But what we're going to do today is to add some second platform and create some teleport in between those two platforms. Then we're going to try to add some environment sound to our space, and also add some web screens and media screens also. And to finish, we're going to see also how we can make some terrains. So let's start. First, we're going to create a second platform. So for those that were there last time, it's quite easy, but I'm going to show it again. So we're going to use for this the tools here, the build mode. On the right down side of your screen, you will see the build mode here. Here on you have a window that opens on the left, and you can see there are several parts. The one that we're interested in now is the name blocks here. So let's go in blocks. I was already in. We can see that we can create, clone, edit, or remove. So let's create a cube. Click on create, then double click here. So you open this pop-up window and choose the cube by double clicking again. Now you can see in the scene we have a cube here. So let's click in the middle of our scene and go in edit on the top menu here. You jump from create to edit, and then you can change the scale here of your object. So that was the first way to create a platform, but we're going to use another way. We're going to simply copy paste our first platform. So you see I've created the first one. So let's just delete using remove. Let's just delete this platform and close the build mode. And now we're going to open here on the left top menu, tools, scene. That will open the scene structure. So just for you to know, you have red lines, black lines. We don't need to go in the red lines. We're only going to use black lines. All those black lines are entities that are inside the scene. So let's click on our ground here. Now we know that we can manipulate our object. And let's duplicate it, and we're going to understand what are the components inside it. So first, copy your ground. Go here in an empty space here and right click past it. So now we have on the top a new ground. So let's double click on it and see what's inside. So we can see that we have a name that we're going to change and call it ground 2. We also see that we have a mesh component. So sorry, that was the name component. Here is the mesh component. Okay, this is the mesh component, and inside the mesh component we fairly see that we have the position, the rotation, and the scale, but we never need to use those. We only need to know that we can here add some material to our object, to our entity, sorry, and then we can add some mesh reference to this entity. And those addresses are pointing to your storage. So also you can add some shadows. So your object casts shadows, and here the draw distance is to make sure you can see it if you are 4 meters away. If you leave it to 0, you will see it from very, very, very far. There's no limit. So that was the mesh component. Now what's interesting is that we can move our object using the placeable component. If we didn't have any placeable component like this, we don't see our object. So we need this placeable component to make sure we can move our object through the space. Let's go here. You can go back in your action if you made a mistake. For example, I put back the placeable in background too. So now I can move my object. Okay, so let's do it again. Copy, paste, open it, and rename it. Okay, so there. Now we're going to use the placeable component to move our object. So or you can use the X, Y, Z arrows to move it, or you could use here your keyboard or your mouse to move your object. So let's move it towards the X-axis about a few meters from our first platform. And now we can see that there's also another component. It's the rigid body. So if I take away the rigid body, let's go and fly over our platform using F and selecting, of course, the other platform. Using F, you can press spacebar if you want to go up and C if you want to go down. So let's press F. So we go through our ground. That's totally normal because we have took off the rigid body. Rigid body is physics. So to add a component to an object, you just need to right click here in the empty space of the entity component editor. Just for you to remember, when you open the entity component editor, you need first to open the scene structure here in tools. So you go in tools, scene, open the scene structure, then double click on the object, and then you have the entity component. So now we're going to add this rigid body component. So right click, say add new, and choose from the drop down menu the rigid body component here, and click add. So basically here we have a very squarey shape. So we can leave, if you scroll down, the shape type as box. But if you have some more complicated shape, as for example the rocket, in this case, so you need to scroll down in the rigid body component here, scroll down, you need to put it in the tree mesh shape type. So it will exactly fit your object. So let's go back to our platform and make sure we are in a box shape type. And now we can try to land just by pressing F. Okay, good. Now we can walk on our ground. So this was the component rigid body that gives you a possibility to create physics. You will see around this component that there are many parameters. You can play around with them and add some mass or linear friction, but it's not the point for our example. So now that we have two platforms, we need to put some teleports. So to do so, we're going to create some little entities that will represent our teleports. So let's close the entity component, and we're going to create a new entity. New entity, you right click here on the scene structure in an empty space and say new entity. Then we're going to say teleport 1, for example, like this. Okay, I made it the wrong way, so I delete it. I'm going to go, in the build mode. It's better. It will be more interesting for you to do it this way. So let's go in blocks, click in create, choose, for example, a code, and press left mouse to drop it in the world. Then we're going to create a second shape. So double click here and use double click on cylinder, and we're going to put it here too. Okay, so now we have our two objects in the middle of the scene. So let's leave the build mode and go back in tools, scene, and we can see we have now cone and cylinder that are upon our new ground. They've been added in the scene structure. So that means we have two new entities. So we could leave the cylinder as cylinder, but let's give a name to cone and name it arrow 1. Okay. And the cylinder, maybe we could call it cylinder. Oh, we need to double click cylinder. Cylinder, we could call it cylinder 1 because it will be linked later. I will show you how to do it. So now that we have gave name to our objects, let's move them and resize them. So here we can see that we have our cone, but it's a little too small maybe. So let's go in placeable component that we always have when we create an object here, and we will resize the scale of it to, let's say, 3 in x-axis, 3 in z-axis, and maybe 2 in the y-axis. Okay, once we've done this, let's put this, sorry, open the placeable, go in rotation under transformation, and let's put a 90-degree, 180-degree rotation to our object. Okay, we have now the bottom of our arrow, and let's click on the cylinder and pull it up so we have now our little arrow. Problem is our two objects are not linked. If we want to manipulate them, we can use Control and click the two objects so we can manipulate them, but they won't really be connected. So to do that, we're going to parent them. To parent an object to another, you need to know or its number here, 14, 13, 11, 8, 7, 6, or its names. So it can be cylinder 1, arrow 1. This is why you need to give specific name to your entities, so you can easily find them when you parent them to another. So to parent an object, you just go in placeable component and see here you have parent entity reference. So the reference for the cylinder will be the arrow, and the arrow's number is 13, or the name is arrow 1. So let's use the name and say, click on the cylinder and say in parent entity reference arrow 1. Good. So as you can see, the cylinder have moved. It's totally normal because it have some position that are wrong. Now that we consider that it's parented to the arrow, we need to put the position of our child in 0, 0, 0. So it will fit exactly on, I was, okay, not good one, so let's go back. Okay, like this. Then I parent my cylinder to arrow 1. It should move. Okay. Arrow 1. Okay. And then 0, 0, 0. Now it's back, but it's a little too big. So go in mesh and maybe put it in 0.5 here. So we can copy this, it will be faster, like this. And now we're going to move it back up, like this. So maybe 35 will be there. This. Okay. Now that we have our arrow, Let's put 50. Okay, there. Now that we have our arrow linked with our cylinder, or our cylinder linked with the arrow, we know that if we move the arrow, the cylinder will follow. They are fully linked. So what we're going to do before adding some teleport to our space, we're going to copy this. But before that, maybe we could add some glow, so our arrow will be glowing. So let's do that first. Let's add some glowing light. So go in arrow and right click in the entity component editor and scroll down to add a stencil glow. Stencil glow. Yeah. Now we can see we have some glowing around our arrow. So let's change the parameters of this component. You open the stencil glow component. First you can change the color. Let's say orange. You can change the alpha. Let's put it to 150. And then it could be fit exactly on the shape. So let's put it on 1.01. And let's copy this to the 3 others. Okay, that's good. So to go a little faster, we can just copy here, right click, copy, and now select the cylinder and paste it in the entity component of the cylinder. So it will also have this glowing effect. So now that we have our 2 objects linked, we're gonna select the 2 of them and copy, paste them. So something may be wrong now because we have in this cylinder a bad address for the parent. So let's move in cylinder, double clicking, opening the component editor, and rename it first and call it cylinder 2. Same with the arrow, we're going to call it arrow number 2. Then go back in cylinder and say in Placable, parent entity ref is now arrow 2. So now if I move my arrow number 2, the cylinder will follow. Here you can see the cylinder has followed my arrow. So now that we have 2 arrows, we're going to add some teleportation on those arrows so we can move from a platform to another. So this is very simple. Just I want to show you first that you can create some groups now that we have all our entities ready. So I'll show you this after putting the teleport. It's better, I think. So let's do the teleport thing. To add a teleport component, you need to click in your cylinder, the first one or the second one. Let's say the first one, and add a new component named Meshmoon teleport. So you scroll down. Sorry, I've been a little quick. So you right click in empty space, add new component, scroll down in the menu, and then choose Meshmoon teleport here. Then click add. So now you see we have this new component named Meshmoon teleport, and we can do 2 types of teleportation. Or we do it by left clicking on an object, or we do it by being in the proximity of this object. For our example, we're going to use the left click. You can then try on your own using the proximity. So what you need to make sure is 3 things. First, you need to make sure one of those 2 are on, or left click or proximity, but one of the 2 are needed. Then you need to make sure if you want people to be aware of the teleport. So if you click this away and put it to false, they won't know there's teleport. If you click on, there will be a pop-up window on the top, and you will see it in a few minutes, that advise you that there's a teleport. And the main important thing is here, it's the destination pose. So to do so, we need to go in Placable of each object and note on the text on your computer or on a paper with a pen the right XYZ address of each object. So let's do this first and click, for example, arrow 1, go in Placable, And we know that this object is in -64. You can see it here in transform position. -64, 2, and then 0.5. I try to simplify the numbers. Then we click on the second arrow, and we see that it's in -3.5, for example, and then 2.5, and then 0.5. Okay, so this is teleport 2. Now we can go back in our first arrow here, arrow 1, and here we're gonna add the teleport. No, it should be done. Where is it? Oh no, okay. So let's add component Meshmoon teleport and add it. Once it's added, we are gonna click on left click and change the destination to the platform number 2, the teleport number 2. That was 3.5, then 2.5, and 0.5. Then once we're there, okay, now we can click on the second one, click add new component. Oops, wrong one. So let's delete and say add new component and choose Meshmoon teleport like this. Then now we're going to use the first destination. So it was -64 here. Then it was 2 and 0.5. So let's put 2 here and here 0.5. And make sure that we have click on left click here. So now when we teleport from another space to another, it should work. Let's try. Okay. As I have clicked on the object, it have proposed me a pop-up. So if I say yes, I'm teleported on the other platform. And the same if I click here on the arrow, I will be teleported on the other platform. So to make sure people don't do the mistake of clicking on your cylinder, for example, we're going to copy what's inside arrow 1, the Meshmoon teleport component, copy, and we're going to copy it inside the cylinder 1. So now we can make sure that even if people click on the cylinder or the cone, they will be teleported. And we now do the same for cylinder 2. So let's go in cylinder number 2, open the entity components. That's crazy. Okay, deleted the wrong one. So okay, arrow, good. Arrow 2, copy, and then cylinder 2, paste. Okay, so now if we click on the cylinder, we also are teleported. We can click anywhere on the arrow. So that's good for arrows. Now what could be nice also would be to add some text to our little teleports to advise people it's a teleport. So to do that, we're going to go in the cylinder. So let's go in cylinder 1 here. And we're going to add some new component named, so right click, add component, some component named here, HoveringText here. So let's do that. Now that we see on the top of our pile of components, we can see HoveringText. Let's open it. And what we need to know about the HoveringText is really the color here of your text and the text. So let's write a text first and say teleport 2, no, teleport 1, sorry. Then We can put white, black color is good. So as you can see, the text is not exactly in a good place. So what we need to do is to make it go up. To do so, just upon the place where you written your text, you can see position. So let's move it to 1 in y-axis, -1 or 1, it depends on the shape. And also, the text is a little big inside. So let's move the white to 3, and here the height, it's a little upper here. The height, we move it to 3 too. And once this is done, close entity component and reopen your cylinder 1 and go back in your hovering text component and try just to change the size. Where is it? Font size. No. Um, let me find font size here. So let's put it to 50. And you can see now we have our text upon our object. So what we're going to do is just make a copy of this hovering text component, right click, copy, and we're going to copy it in our cylinder 2 here. Fast. Then open the component and we're going to rename it. So to rename it, just delete the first text you had and rewrite it a second time, but with a different name. Teleport 2. Okay. So it will be actualized after. So once we've done this, that we have some text, we have some teleports working, we can teleport to places. You see it have automatically updated the text. Now we could add some screens on our space. So let's go on our first platform. Okay, there we are. And let's add some web browser, for example. Or maybe, yeah, I could show you first how to add some environment sound to give a nice environment sound to your space. To do so, first you need to find on the web a sound, or maybe create it. And you need to know that the wave format is the best for the sound to use in Meshmoon and in 16 byte. Once you have created or downloaded a sound from anywhere, you can upload it in your storage. So create a new folder that you will name sound, like this. Once it's created, you should have a file in your storage named sound here, and then drag and drop your sound. So I've already done it because it may take some time and I don't want to lose time, so I prefer to show you how to do it. But just drag and drop from your file on your computer, for example, sound, like this. You drag and drop it from the file to the storage, and it will automatically be uploaded. So once you have uploaded this sound, you are going to need to create a new entity that we're going to call sound environment, like this. Okay, and press enter. Just make sure not to leave any gaps or space between the words when you're writing names for your entities or for your folders. It's good a bit. Sometimes Meshmoon will tell you you're not allowed even to write without something in between the space. So now that we created our sound environment, we can see that it's an empty entity unless we have the name. So as it's not as it is a special sound, we don't need to put any placeable. So we only need to add some sound components. So let's right click, add new component, and drag down in the list, choose sound, not sound listener, only sound, and add it. Now you open the component, sound component, and fairly simple to use. You can loop your sound. In our case, it's an ocean sound, so it's needed to be looped. So we click on loop, and we want our sound to be played once people are logged in our space. So let's play on load. The sound gain is going from 0 to 1. Usually 1 is fairly loud, so let's try to start with a 20 or 30 is good. And then sound radius, inner radius, outer radius is not useful if you use a special sound. So what we need to know now is where is our sound. So as it is in our storage, we just right click, copy the asset reference, and paste it here in the sound reference. So it goes directly, and press enter. Now you will hear some ocean sound all around us. So I don't know if you can hear it. In case you do, I will put the sound to 0, so it won't be, or maybe I put it to 0.05, so it's not too disturbing for everybody. Now that we've added this environment sound, I'm going to show you how to add some web content and media content in your space. So to do so, there would be two ways. First, we could try again using build mode, creating a cube, resizing it. But as we've done for our ground, we can really go faster using simply, let me close this, using simply the copy function. So let's use a ground 2 for example, copy it, then paste it in the scene structure, and rename it in, for example, web screen. Remember, no gaps, it's better. Like this, web screen. And by the way, while we are here, we're gonna go in Placable and make it a little bit smaller because it's very big. So let's put it to something like maybe 10 meters in X, and I would say something like 12 meters in Z. And let's rotate now our screen. So we go in rotation here and apply a 90-degree rotation in the X-axis. So now we have a huge gigantic screen. Maybe we could pull it down to 7, 10 like this, so it's not too big. Good. And now we want to add some content in our object. As it's not a ground anymore but a web screen, we're going to add a new component, right click, add new component, and we're going to choose web screen, Meshmoon, web browser. Here we are. So let's use web browser. And here we can see that we have the keyboard input, 3D mouse input. All we need is to make sure it's enabled. Don't use those for the moment. And all we need to know also is what is the URL. So just go in the internet and use any web address. For example, let's use Meshmoon, copy and then paste it inside here. Okay, then okay. So to see your your web page, sometime you may need to relog inside the world. So let's see if it does want to show us the page. Okay. Well, it looks like it doesn't want to show, so that means we need to do it another way. It's a good example. Then we're going to use the build mode. I wanted to go fast and it was not the good solution, so there's always another solution in Meshmoon. So let's do it this way. We go in blocks here, we go create, and we choose web browser here. We add, oh, it's already added, but we can add here our URL, and we leave like it is, size and target submesh. So let's click here, choose the cube, and let's click here. So now we can see we have a nice web screen in our scene. a little small, but a web screen. So let's rename it to web screen and modify its size in Placable, putting it to 7 or maybe 5 up to 7. It's not too bad. And let's make a rotation 90 degrees. 90 degrees. Okay. Now our screen there. Here we go. We have a web screen in our space. So let's move the windows so you can see. It's a web screen that we can manipulate. We can go inside, scroll down, click on buttons. So it's full web screen that is integrated in your space. So it's not in a good place actually. I'm going to move it a little bit. Here gives it a 180 rotation and maybe okay, make it a little less wider. So never put the Y or the white axis in 0. It might make some trouble. Always have a minimum of 0.1, for example. It's better like this. So let's put this. Okay, minus 90. Here we go. Now we're gonna add some media screen. So to add a media screen, it's the same thing as we've done for the web screen. We're gonna go in build mode here. First we're gonna teleport. Sorry. First we're gonna teleport to our first platform. Okay, to our second platform. Sorry. And then we're gonna add a new little screen here. So let's use the build mode. Go in create. Click on cube. Oh, I have not made sure. First you need to click on media player. So to add a media, you have to upload, or you can put a streamed address, or you can put something you have uploaded in your storage. So as we've done for sound, you should create a new folder, name it video, and then you will have a video folder created in your storage. Then go on in your computer and choose a video, not too heavy, I would advise you, or streamed if it's heavy. Then drag and drop it in the storage as you did for the sound. I've already done it, so we won't lose time. And I'm going to use the 3GP format. I can delete this one. Yeah, we're going to use the very short stop motion 3GP. So I've already copied the address in the media, and I made sure it was not only audio, but it was also video. So I ticked off audio only, and I said, yeah, I want it to be played once I start, when I log in. So let's close this and create this second cube. That will be our media player. Okay. Maybe we can edit our object, make it a little bit bigger. That's the second one. Let's remove this one. Okay. So now in our media player, when we click, should play the video. So it's not. It's always nice little effect. Things are not working when you show them. So let's close our first. Copy the URL here. Not the asset reference, precisely the URL, and make sure it's really the URL that is here. So no, we had a wrong link. It was linked to the good place in the storage, but not using HTTP. So let's copy the good address. Now you see it start with http dot double slash meshmoon, etc., etc. So let's try this. Should be better. Okay, as we can see, now there is a little video playing on our queue, and I have looped it. No, I have not. So now to play it, you just need to click on play. Maybe we should close the build mode first and the storage. And now we see we have a little video player on our entity. So let's move this, rename it to media screen. Okay, and let's move it a little forward here and also resize it to maybe 6, 5, and then put just 0.1 here. Okay, well, wrong one, so let's put 6 here and 0.1 here. Much better. So we now have in our two space a media screen and a web screen. Okay, so now one little last thing I wanted to show you today was how to create a terrain on your world. So let's fly a little up, pressing F and then spacebar, so I can see a little bit more my full world. So, okay. And we're going to add now some terrain using a height map. To do so, we create a new entity and call it terrain. So double click in the entity to open entity component, and as done before, we have an empty component. So let's add first a placeable, because we want to know where it is in space and be able to move it. So it's the basic to create the placeable and add. And also, okay, we've done our name. Now we're going to add a new component that's named terrain. So right click, add component, choose from the drop down list menu and choose terrain. Here we have. So basically, a terrain is very flat and it's just a little square. What we need to put inside this terrain is some shape. To do so, we use some height map. So you can create your own height map, or you can find easily some looking in Google. So to do so, we're going to use one I've already uploaded in my storage, and I will show you what it looked like. So I have here created a new folder, and I've named it terrain or terrain HM. Then I have drag and dropped from my computer this height map, and as you can see, it's black and white. The black and the white represents the height and the depth of your image. Black is depth and height is very high. White is very high. So let's show you how it works. We're just going to copy the asset reference, not the URL, only the asset reference. And in our terrain component, we're going to look for somewhere to put here, height map, to put this texture. So let's paste it. And you see on my left something have appeared. It's our terrain. So what we need to do now is to move our terrain using the placeable. But let's go through terrain first. There are not much things to change inside it. You just need to put your terrain height map. And then we're going to move it with the placeable using the position. So let's say, yeah, like this. And then here, I'm going to put it like this. So we are slightly in the middle. And then I'm going to put the height a little lower. Okay, looks better. And as we are at the end, of the webinar, I will show you also what you can add is a water plane, so it looks much nicer. To do so, you need to go, let's close this, in build mode, and choose from the drop down list in the top left environment. And as we have added some sky here, that we could also put some clouds. We can also add a water around, so let's put complex and maybe put it a little lower like this. So now we have a space with water and land with our little platform. So as my platform is bumping here, I may want to move a little bit before we finish a little bit my terrain here. Let's move it further, maybe to, you know, okay, like this is good. Okay, now see, now if I fly upon, I can see my two platforms upon our little island. So I think this is it for today. We've been through a variety of components. Just for you to remember, we've learned how to do some glowing elements. We've learned how to give a name to an object. We've learned also how to understand the mesh component, the rigid body components. So we have now solid objects we can walk on or bump in. Also the teleport, so we can go from a platform to another. And also those web screens and media screens to add some content into your space. And as you've seen also this little terrain, so we can have some terrain around us. So this is it. I hope it was good for you, and let's see in the next webinar.